Hello you guys, and welcome back to the channel. I thought I'd talk about the reality that I had before I was diagnosed with autism. And I wanted to say that, from when I was little up until when I got diagnosed with autism around 14 or 15, that I had a tough life, or at least in my interpretation. So when I was 2 or 4, I remember the exact age I had gotten a diagnosis of ADHD. And it's common to misdiagnose someone who has autism with ADHD because the signs are fairly similar. The traits you have with ADHD and the traits you have with autism are very, very alike. The way I see it, autism affects how you see the world and see things and understand things around you. And first, my folks sent me to a Catholic school that had literally no knowledge on how to handle someone with special needs. No knowledge. And I don't think that was a good idea. That I should have been sent to a school that had the support I need. And a teacher who will take the proper protocol. If I was getting frustrated by the changes. Because there were plenty of times at that school that I hated where, there was a change and I couldn't process it and I started melting down and the teacher punished me for it. And then I ended up being punished by my mom as well. And then I think what my aunt did to me really messed me up to this day. My mom used to live here before we moved to the suburbs, so my mom could be closer to her job and so I could get into a good school. My mom had a boyfriend, I think. And then when my mom was supposed to stay the night with him, I guess during her off days, she would send me to my aunt's house. And I used to love going to my aunt's house up until, the things she did to me started to come out. Now, most kids with autism, it takes them a while to learn things. And I can't follow verbal instructions. I can follow the instructions better if I can see what you want me to do. It didn't occur to me, but when I made a mistake, or I couldn't understand what Aunt wanted me to do, or was unable to process the instructions that she gave me because they were verbal and not where I can actually see it, she would hit me for it. And one time, her nieces and I were helping her make a potato salad. And we were, peeling and cutting up the eggs to put in the potato salad. So the white part of the egg had come off on the shell while I was peeling the egg. And then my aunt hit me for it. What would have been so hard if she had said, okay, here, let me show you a better way to peel this egg. I did nothing wrong. All that happened was the white came off of the egg. That happens depending on how long you cook the egg. And I get hit for something that wasn't my fault. My aunt was helping me with my math homework. And math is my hardest subject. And I just could not understand what the stuff was. And my aunt just starts yelling at me. I'm literally crying because I don't understand. I'm being yelled at. I don't know why I'm being yelled at. I can't understand. And instead of yelling at me, she could have gave me a mechanism to help me get it right. A mnemonic device. What would have been so hard about that? Coming with a mnemonic device to help me do the math better. Now, the only thing I can give her is that this was before anybody knew that I had autism. But still, you should be careful with how you treat kids. And is it a smart idea to send your child to someone who wouldn't know what ADHD was if it walked up to the butt and bit them? Was that really a smart idea? Whenever my mom would say, oh, I'm sending you to your aunt's, I would get so upset because I know it's going to be nothing but getting yelled at and getting hit for making mistakes and misunderstanding. Is that if my aunt believes that a misunderstanding or making a mistake is deserving of a hitting, I feel more like her punching bag than her niece. And this makes me kind of fear for the next generation of kids with ADHD and autism. You have these adults who don't know what ADHD or autism was, wouldn't know what it was if it walked up to the butt and bit them, don't know the proper protocol to handle someone with ADHD and autism, and they think what my aunt did to me is supposed to correct it. It's supposed to push it out of them. You cannot force ADHD or autism out of someone. You can't. You're just only going to do more damage to the person. That I wasn't misbehaving on purpose. but because I was going to a religious Catholic school that had no idea how to handle someone with special needs. And they just assumed I was misbehaving or being rude or just being obnoxious, but really I wasn't getting the support that I needed. And there are plenty of times where my mom punished me for simple traits caused by my autism. For instance, ADHD or autism makes us very forgetful. I want you guys to picture a junkyard. That is how our brains are. And imagine things trying to pass through that junk. And one time, I forgot to show my mom a form. It wasn't like a letter saying I was misbehaving. It was just some flyers, that was handed out to let parents know stuff the school was holding. And I know my mom punished me for each paper that I forgot to show her. Like, I just forgot. I didn't get home until maybe from school till 3:30. She didn't get home till maybe 6 or 7. Of course, I would have forgotten to show her between when I got the papers and when she got home from school. And another thing is that this school did an annual trip to Indiana Beach at the end of the year, and then she punished me by not allowing me to go on the trip. Punished, all because I just innocently forgot to show her those papers. Because, like I said, I got home from school at maybe 3:30 or sometimes 4 o'clock if my granddad stopped off somewhere, and she didn't get home till 6 or 7. But then I passed my science test and she changed her mind. So it wasn't for my scientific abilities. Yeah, I probably would have been, forbidden to go on the trip, all for something innocent. You guys, there are a lot of tales. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I just wanted to go into the ones that stuck out to me. That kind of made it hard for me as an undiagnosed person with autism. And then my folks would whoop me, hit me, and all kinds of stuff just because I wasn't getting the support that I needed at school. And sometimes we are brutally honest. Like, we will say what we feel. Like, if we think something is boring, we're going to tell you, we're going to be honest. Because in most cases, sometimes honesty is better than a lie. And my mom and the teacher had heard me say that a presentation was boring or something when this guy came into the class. Then my mom punished me for that. The one thing is that sometimes, and this could apply for a lot of people with ADHD or autism, but sometimes I might not be aware of how my tone sounds. Like, to me, I think my tone sounds okay, but to somebody else, they might perceive it as harsh, and I think that's what happened. I could have had my opinion about the presentation. I could have gave some criticism to the guy on how to make it better, but the teacher perceived my tone as harsh. In the winter of 27 going into 2008, my mom and I went down south. Now, every time we've gone down south, my mom would say, I'm going to be at my grandmother's house or one of my aunt's house. And I end up being with her friend. And then we stayed with her friend. Okay, so me and the son was having trouble sharing my DS. And then rather than come up with a system that, well, for 10 minutes I get the DS, and for 10 minutes the son gets the DS, we're going to call the son Joe. So for 10 minutes I get the DS, and for 10 minutes Joe gets the DS. They just took it away. Now, I initially thought she said I couldn't play with the DS, but there was no mention that Joe can play with the DS either. And so Joe's mom saw him with the DS. And I'm like, you said I couldn't play it. And then my mom was saying, I meant both of you. And then I was punished for that. My mom was saying, you can't let nobody get you in trouble. Like, he didn't get me in trouble. You just said I couldn't play with the DS. You never specified we both can play with the DS. And that's another common thing with people with autism. You need to be specific. And instead of, this is all my mom knew, punish, 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 punish. Not compromise, compromise, compromise. Yeah, junior high and my freshman year of high school was rough. That kids liked me until they picked up I was different and automatically hated me. It's like neurotypicals think a person who's a little different is a threat to society. And instead of my folks putting me through all that torture, thinking punishing and yelling at me and hitting me was gonna work, if my mom suspected something was wrong from the get-go, why wasn't she getting me evaluated? I think had I gotten evaluated for autism, they caught the diagnosis, maybe it would be a little bit easier for me to get disability. It probably would be easier for me to get disability had this been caught sooner. But no, my folks are too busy torturing me thinking that was going to work. So they literally treat me like a prisoner, just because I had an undetected issue. Parents, you cannot always assume your kids just being a brat for the fun of it. Something could be seriously wrong, and they're not getting support, they're not being understood. That's gonna make them misbehave, like we're putting misbehave in quotes. So that's kind of why I act like a kid, because my whole childhood was robbed of me because I was always on punishment for an undiagnosed condition. I'm kind of like trying to make up for what was lost. And if my mom understood that, then she wouldn't judge me for being childish, for not wanting to be an adult. Because I never had I didn't have a childhood. It's like I did. I mean, this is my interpretation of everything. And I think that what my aunt did to me is one of the reasons I'm afraid to make mistakes. Because when I was in her care, whenever I made a mistake, she would hit me or yell at me. And I think my mom's second boyfriend, whenever he yelled at me for a mistake, so I think all the times I've been yelled at, hit, and punished for making mistakes, I think that could be the reason why I'm afraid to make mistakes to this day. Humans make mistakes. So in a weird sense, my aunt was hitting me and yelling at me for being a human. My mom's second boyfriend was yelling at me for being a human because humans are going to make mistakes. We are not machines. You know, God didn't make us fireproof from mistakes. I think He made us to make mistakes for a reason. And if I'm being yelled at and punished just for something that's in human nature, then that tells me that there's no room for perfection. You're supposed to be perfect all the time. Can't make no mistakes. But I just try to use what I've been through as a lesson to, parents to kind of pay close attention to your kids' behavior. Because it might not always be them, misbehaving or being bratty. Learn about ADHD and autism and mental illness, because your kid could have it. I'm not trying to tell you how to raise your kids, but you clearly saw what my folks did to me didn't work.